the fatal statement is, "This won't take very long." Usually, those are my longest segments. Whenever I prepare a lesson, a sermon, or whatever, I think, man, I'll be through this in maybe 15 minutes. Ends up being the longer ones. It's like, what? I just can't stop talking. So we'll see. I know that right now I'm in competition with lunch, so I want to make sure that I'm honoring that. But the last segment is going to take, just a heads up, there's going to be a little more time spent on the last lesson, only because it has to do with the therefore what. It's a lot of the therefore what, where the rubber meets the road. Therein lies the rub, however you want to put it. As far as all this information we've been looking at, none of this is something is foreign to our thinking. Maybe just needs to be a refresher. But we are going to talk about some ticklish things in the last lesson. So, lesson 3. Gaining talents. Building up where you are. So we're going to look at a couple of things here. Is there a difference between honing a talent and gaining a talent? Would you say there's a difference? So let's look at this one, honing a talent. Investing effort to improve it. First thing you have to do is believe there's room for improvement. You've probably known some people who don't feel like they need to improve anything. They've arrived. And so they really don't do anything more or anything better than what they've done before. I put this way one time, where there was a elementary school teacher, and I don't even know if this is a real person, but you get the illustration. Elementary school teacher teaching, say, the 3rd grade, taught for 25 years, but they never changed their material. And so somebody noted, says, no, you taught for 1 year 25 times. And so you could probably see the difference there. They didn't allow themselves any kind of growth or improvement, or how can I do this better than I already am? Ideally, hopefully, I know I can only speak for myself. Whether it's this what I'm doing right now or whatever that I engage in, that's not like I reflect on this every time, but there are plenty of times, even in my secular work, where I'll look at the work I've done and I'll say it works and it does okay, but it could have been better. My mom is notorious for this. She'll prepare a meal. We'll sit down and we're like, "Oh, this is the best stuff ever." She's going, "Well, I don't know. I could have done this and I could have done that." And she's like, "Okay, we'll make it wrong every time because it's great, you know." But it does take, in order to get to this, there has to be some self-reflection. There has to be an ability to look into yourself and say, what can I do differently? Becoming more effective with it. I think that this might have been the message of Matthew 25 and verse 27. It says, when he is coming down on the lazy slave. By the way, when it says wicked and lazy slave there, that word wicked, it means utterly wicked. It doesn't mean just mildly wicked. When you look up the Greek meaning of this word, this is like very wicked. You think, well, somebody who's just not doing anything is very wicked. Jesus said so. I think he probably had the authority to say it. They're very wicked. And he goes on to say in verse 27, you know that I reap where I did, this is verse 26, where I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I scattered no seed, then you ought to have put my money in the bank. And on my arrival, I would have received my money back with interest. My take on that is the one talent. He didn't say you had to grow your talent into another talent, did he? He said, improve this. At least improve this. Be better at this. The one thing. You didn't build on the one thing where there's at least an improvement on it. And so we to perhaps take that to heart and look at ourselves and ask what we can do there. And I put the question here. I can't remember if I have it on slide. We'll see. What are ways we can hone what we have? What are some ways? What are some ways to hone?
Practice.
Practice it.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again and again. Okay. What else?
Invite feedback.
Feedback. I'm going to mention that in a little bit. We're going to a lot of the things that we're talking about this morning. There's going to be a lot of overlap and repeat of some of these thoughts. Feedback from someone else.
Ask or learn from others that are doing it,
Right.
their way, instead of just assuming your way is
Right.
the only way.
I know that you recommended that to me. I for a little while there, I would get back into trying my hand at poetry. And Brett's recommendation is read poetry. Find out how they write, not so that you can duplicate what they did, but you just kind of learn about how poets put things together. It's just like, that's kind of an angle I never thought of. I always have this certain kind of rhythm in the poem. They don't have that kind of rhythm, but it works. So maybe I could open my mind a little bit and learn a little bit more from someone already doing those things. Any fishermen here? Maybe one or two? Yeah. Can you learn some more techniques on how better to fish in certain areas? I don't know where my dad learned his fishing skills, but he was a pretty good angler. Whenever it's one of those things, we'd be driving along and he'd see a creek. He says, "There's a good hole right there." He just knew. He says, I'll bet there's a massive trout right there, right now. And he'd keep driving, but you know what he wanted to do. Let's find out. And so, isn't it a thing where when your mind is kind of geared in this direction, you're going to see it more? You're going to recognize it more? I think there is something that happens with your eyes, and it's called rapid image verification or identification or whatever it is. There's a term, there's an acronym there, but basically the way it works is whatever your mind is on is what you will see. Okay. If I ask you right now, if you're going to have you close your eyes and say, how many people in this room are in ISIS? You probably wouldn't be able to tell me. But now that I've told you, asked you that, put that out there, and I had you look around the room, it wouldn't take very long for you to figure that out because you're looking for glasses, okay? So your mind, when you have your mind on something a lot, you're going to see it a lot more. It's going to be recognizable to you. And so you're going to pick up those things, you're going to soak them in, and they're going to be perhaps become part of either your understanding or your practice, because you're looking to learn. You're looking to hone. Let's take the one thing I have, and make it better. Let's take the one thing I have and make that one thing better. So then there's gaining talents. I don't know if this thought crossed your mind or not, how this might compare to 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul is talking to them about the gifts that were given to them by the Holy Spirit. And I would make this distinction between, and I would say that we are given gifts. We're gifted in our abilities to do things, or you can call them talents if you want to. And I think talents were chosen because it's money, it's liquid. So the outcome varies from person to person. So I think that's my take on it. But the distinction I make between what's mentioned in 1 Corinthians 12 and what's mentioned here is that in 1 Corinthians 12, you couldn't go out there and gain a gift. You see what I'm saying? It was given to you by the Spirit. Whereas here, we see the 5 talent man taking the talents and going out there and getting more through those. Now, he started with material that was given to him, but through his efforts was able to make that material into more because of what was given to him. So there's the gaining of the talents, finding new talents through the talents you already have. Okay? You look at yourself, I have this talent, not in a bragging kind of way. I am talented in this. Therefore, I have a responsibility to use it in a humble and godly way. But I better be about using it. So, what can that lead me to? I'm good at X. What can that lead me to? Can one talent beget another? The example I have here is somebody gets up. We talked about the young person getting up and doing a brief devotional talk. Can that lead to public speaking on a grander scale? Certainly. Well, those are the same thing. And maybe one, you could say that's more like honing. I don't know if you would make a distinction. I would make a distinction with this. But certainly one is helping you learn the other. And so it may help go to answer the question, okay, when we think about the 5-talent guy or the 2-talent guy, what does that mean to you and me? How can I look within myself and see whether or not I'm looking at what I have and seeing what I can grow that into beyond what I have? I can't remember who it was, probably when one person talked about when things are tight and it's time to have the worship assembly, sometimes you have to wear 2 or 3 hats, right? How many of you have ever been a one-man show? Yeah. So it's just like you get up there and you don't sit down until it's done because you're the guy, And so you learn on the fly, maybe, but you are perhaps growing talents in that respect, and it becomes one driven by necessity, not because hey, I'd like to do everything this morning. You guys just sit there and I'll do it. That's probably not how that goes. And there are probably people out there that are that way, but that's a different discussion. So, I want to ask you, and I put this question in your handout. What are some examples of talents linking together? What talents would you link together? And I have used all these, leading, singing, and preaching, and so forth as examples, as like I said, an oversimplified way of making the point. Are there some other things, other ways that you see talents linking together?
Well, if you're going to pray, again, praying in private to God is one way of praying and helping you to lead a congregational prayer because you have that, when I say ability, you have that comfort of knowing that you've prayed to God many times. And now you just have to get up in front of the congregation and pray. Now it's different when you're talking in front of a group of people, but it's kind of like if you know what you've said to God previously, you just need to expound on that when you get up in front of the congregation. So
that's right.
Pray in public, private versus
right.
Pray in public.
And I know speaking in front of people can be unnerving, but if we can remember, like what you just now said, the audience hasn't changed.
Right.
The audience is always God. They're praying with you before the Lord. Exactly. And so you're leading the thought, and that has its challenges. But if we can keep the right mindset, he was, I should have been nervous when it was in private too then, because of who I'm speaking to. And by the way, I don't say that that's a bad thing. I need to be nervous about how I approach God, and not a scared kind of wilting kind of way, but in a very reverent, fearful way.
Along the same lines, I know somebody who has really insightful things to say one-on-one or maybe even in a classroom situation, but he has difficulty even considering the possibility of translating that to being up in front of people. if he said what he said just to me and said it in front of people, it would be, affect even more. But that whole idea of being in front of so many people is what stops him. And it's a hard barrier to get past.
Yeah.
So he's got the ability.
Right, right. And then some people feel like in order for the prayer to be meaningful, you have to use this lofty language, almost Shakespearean tone to it in order for it to, because what you're doing can affect what you're doing. And so to be genuine is really what all this has ever been about. Be genuine. Do it for God's purpose. Do it for His sake. Are there and I asked for other possible examples of this, and we've been kind of talking about this, how that might fit. Is any other thoughts before I move on?
Yeah, this makes me think of a farmer, right? You're not just you can't just be a talented farmer without being a great tractor operator that works the land. And if you're a tractor operator, then you're a tractor maintenance person as well. And you're an irrigator, and you're watching your weather and your yield and
Absolutely.
when to harvest.
Oh yeah, you have to. Yeah, you can't just be. I do this.
Yeah,
you're not going to survive.
Honing that
Yeah.
one skill leads to just
Right.
such a
It must.
broad.
Well, I guess I better learn that too. So
I'm just thinking about that guy I mentioned before. I think one of the things that's stopping him is because for a long time people have been not hovering, but kind of expecting him to make that. And I wonder now, listening to you, that maybe patience on our part, because we'd be like, hey, it's time for you to do this, and that could be the very thing that makes them drag their feet.
Yeah.
Push it too hard, maybe. I don't know if that's going on or not.
You have to know the person.
Yeah.
And then maybe you asking him, he's like, but this person asks him, you're like, okay, I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Where it depends on who it is, and that's kind of an interesting dynamic. There's a story told about using your abilities and talents to touch, and I think this would fit in to this, to recognize how you can expand or broaden the effect that has. The story goes where there was a farmer. You kind of sparked this memory for me. Farmer was working his land, and there was a young man. Had come out and was helping him learn how to do the farming, and just that it would be. You just need to see the various things. You walked him around and could see what all was going on, and while this farmer was a very godly man, and so he's always talking about spiritual matters and about what the scriptures say and so forth. Yes, he's trying to bring this young man along spiritually, and they're talking, and the young man said, I do read my Bible. I've been encouraged to do that, and I do read it, but I just don't retain it. It's like join the crowd, but it's just not sticking. I read it, and as soon as I read it, it's gone. I read it again. As soon as I read it, it's gone. I know I'm spending time doing it. Just I don't understand why this is even a beneficial thing. And the farmer said, I get it. I understand what you're saying. He said, I want you to do something for me. And he handed him a bushel basket. He says, you see the hydrant over there? He said, I want you to go fill this basket full of water for me. The boy takes the basket over to the fountain. He's like, okay. And then the farmer says, I'll be back. I go to check on some stuff. And he's making his rounds on some various things. And the boy turns the water on. He's going, this guy's lost his mind. This water's just running right through the basket. Why do you fill the basket with water? What? So he's standing there watching, going, okay, I got a loon on my hands here. So he finally makes his way back around. Says, so how's that going? He says, well, I hope, as you expected, that the water's just running right through the basket. And he says, yeah, but did you notice how much cleaner it is? And his point obviously was this, yeah, you may not be retaining everything, but look what you're spending your mind and your time on. It does have a cleansing effect. What could you be putting into your head right now that the world has to offer? You are spending time with God's word. Now we know that in time he's going to retain. It's going to have its effect. The point was something we could a better effort to spend our time doing. Sometimes don't necessarily understand why you're having me do it like this right now, but at some point it might click, and we just encourage in that direction. There are different, perhaps gradients or degrees of prominence that our talents can have. What did I do? What did I do? Okay. Talents that are more visible, for example. I wrote in your handout public speaking. We've been talking about that because you see the person up there and you're hearing them speak and you're watching their manners and you're finding out whether they can put words together, how extensive their vocabulary may be, and how well they use those words. But then there are the talents that can perhaps happen behind the scenes. And I have written down here whether it might be counseling. Something that not everybody knew that person was doing that, but they're using that for the benefit of that person over there. And then next it's going to be this person or this married couple over here or whatever it is. But it's behind the scenes. It's not out in front, but it is effective. And it is a good thing and a necessary ability that someone may have. What about, and I wrote in your handout also, brainstorming events or class topics. I don't know, if you get people who are interested in what is going to be taught in an adult Bible class, what does this congregation need? Instead of leaving it up to one person going, man, I think we could talk about this. I think the congregation needs to know more about this. What if you sat down and talked and say, what do you guys think? Where are we at? Well, let me put my finger on the pulse of the congregation so we can have a class on what the congregation really needs to focus on right now. And you tap in to these other minds and so forth. But it's something that perhaps happens behind the scenes. It's not out in front, but it does have a profound effect. And then there are the talents that can start small. This maybe go back to the honing idea. It starts seemingly small, but then it grows into something much bigger and better. Whether it's polishing and refinement, or this one was mentioned a while ago, heeding the feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Who likes negative feedback? Anybody like it? Is it necessary? Are you ready for it? Probably the feedback that's going to benefit you the most. Now, there's also the occasion where it's, well, this person's always critical anyway. One of the things that's hard to do is to separate what's being said from the person who said it. Person A can say, and you're like, well, that's just their nature. They're going to criticize everything. And you don't even remember what they said. But person B says the exact same words, but they're a friend, or they're on your side, and all of a sudden, like, that's really wise. It's the same words. Kids do that to their parents. The parents say, here's some advice for your life. And the kid's like, and they don't even hear it. And an uncle or a family friend or whatever will say, I'll say it again, the exact same words. And the kid's like, wow, where have you been all my life? This is really helping me a lot. And the parents are standing over there going, I said that. I said that. And you're like, okay, well, as long as they got it. So when we are examining ourselves and wanting to improve on these things and grow them from something small into something better, we may need to be ready to listen to someone say, you did a very good at this, this, and this, but this might need a little help. Your conclusion, the middle part, whatever it is, your illustrations, your PowerPoint, but may need a little bit more substance to it. And after you get over your fit of being criticized, you're like, okay, all right, I want to be better. I want to get better. Is it easier to see talents in someone other than yourself? You can look objectively at someone and say, I see talent in them and them and them and them. Me, not so much. Here's my question. Is there a no talent person?
No.
No. There's some people who believe that there are. And usually by the time they're saying that, they are telling you that it is them. They are the no talent person. So why would someone say or believe this? There's probably not a single reason. I put a few in the handout here. Maybe you've got some thoughts on this. Fear, self-doubt. I don't have any talents. I'm too afraid. Don't make me do anything. And they really don't think they have anything to offer. But they do. And that's what we need to help them get past is this. How about this? By declaring myself absent of any talents, you can't really call on me to do anything because I don't know how to do anything. And so there's no responsibility. How can I be responsible if I didn't have a talent to lose or to bury in the first place?
Maybe I've said it, but sometimes I see people with talents and they're talented in the world with something, and they could be talented applying it to the church, but unfortunately they also bring strategies and tactics that don't belong in the church from the world along with that talent.
Sure.
I don't know how that can be shaped
How
carefully.
you can filter that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's probably going to be a per circumstance consideration, but it's going to take some observation of others and the building of a relationship. We have to build relationships with each other. None of this is going to go anywhere if we haven't paid our dues with each other. If I haven't come to you and I've proven to you before any of that ever came up that I am on your side. You and I are like this. We're together on this so that when those things come up, they know you've got their back. So that when you're saying something critical, it's like, I may not like what I'm hearing, but I do need to give it some thought. I need to consider what I'm being told here. Build relationships so that any of this can happen. Without relationships, all of what I have said so far is kind of empty and meaningless.
I think that correlates with just encouragement.
Encouragement. Certainly it does.
Don't put that way.
That's right. And so, you don't have to be their bosom buddy or anything like that, but a trusted voice, somebody has demonstrated that you are with them on this, on whatever is important.
I read the book Koinonia, and it deals exactly what Brett was talking about.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
a very good book, and when there's those other ideas coming into reading the book, it really helped me kind of look at it from the church perspective. It was I'd recommend that book to anyone.
Koinonia.
Yeah.
It's a good word to know the meaning of.
Mhm.
We find the word koinonia in the original in First John 1:7. If we walk in the light as He Himself is in the light, we have fellowship. We have koinonia with one another. But also in 1 Corinthians 10, when it talks about the sharing of the cup, that word sharing there is koinonia. Okay, so we talked about the communion service specifically. There is a fellowship, a koinonia going on there. We need to build koinonia with one another for any of this to carry any weight whatsoever. And it takes time. And I think the word patience was mentioned a little while ago. Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with what? With great patience. Not just with a little bit of patience, is it? Why? probably they're going to push back. You know, I'm going to mention that here in a bit too. When we're trying to help people along, it's going to be a process.
And if you're not walking in his ways, you're not going to be able to learn his ways.
Right? You're not going to see it.
And it's a lot of it is attitude that will carry you a long way if you have a good attitude about it.
That's not always easy to maintain. All right.
Well, when I was in the Navy, there was a job that I had to do, and I learned how to do it. But I had to teach others to do it. You talk about patience. I mean, a thing I could do in about 5 minutes. And 45 minutes, the guy still hasn't done it. And I said, come on, you can do it.
Yeah.
It dawned on me. The first time I did it took about 45 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly. You kind of have to look back on yourself. David.
I was just thinking back to the initial parable. The first two gentlemen with the 5 towns and the 2 towns, the scripture says they immediately went out and traded.
Yeah, right now.
They were eager.
Yeah.
And they seemingly had a
Be
plan.
gone. Let's go.
They had an eager, they seemingly had a plan, they knew what they would do if they just had,
Yeah.
and went for it.
Yeah.
And the third person here, maybe more what you're,
Drag-
he's got the fear, the self-doubt.
yeah, the dragging the feet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know if I got anything.
Yep. What do I mean by riding coattails? Does that happen?
Yeah.
Because you are a member of a large congregation and that's thriving. You just walk through the doors. Look what I'm a part of. Yeah. Looking around. Yep. I'm helping with this by being here, by breathing the same air in this building. Yeah, I'm part of what's going on. There's a story. There's another application you can make with this, but you'll get the point why I'm using it here. Some years ago, when Michael Jordan was still playing for the Bulls, there's a game in particular that they played and they had won. And during the game, they had put one of their rookies out on the court. And while he was out on the court, he was able to score 1 point. Okay. In the same game, Michael Jordan had scored 60 points by himself, which is extraordinary. But that's Michael Jordan for you. And they were interviewing the rookie after the game, after they had won the game. The press was interviewing the rookie. And he says, well, what did you think about how things went? He says, well, Michael and me, we combined for 61 points. You see the point. Teamwork is if you're part of a team, you're kind of benefiting. Everybody's benefiting the same, aren't they? But in that sense, he was kind of taking something from someone else, the work that somebody else was doing, and saying, yeah, I'm standing next to this really effective person. And so by osmosis, or as if it's a contagion, your effectiveness is associated with theirs. Go ahead.
I thought you were going to say they won by 1 point.
Oh, no. Now, that would be a funny story. I don't know what the margin was. They won. And so that was the statement he made afterwards, but it was kind of an interest. That's how he saw it. And that's not an invalid way to put it, but you get my point. I think sometimes people think because they're in proximity to success, then they are somehow a contributor to it. And if they're not actually doing anything, then I think we know what the true answer to that is. Something to really watch out for and make sure that it's not something that can creep into our thinking. Are there some, in light of the question, is there the no talent person? I put on your handout there a spot if you wanted to write anything down, other possible reasons someone might say something like this.
Yeah, it makes me think of this attitude stuff, I guess, and one attitude is, well, I'm going to church and I kind of want to get a pass fail, with God when I die, and I want to pass. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's very different than I want to excel at being a follower of Jesus, and I want to be the best disciple that I can, and here we go and
Go back to your previous statement about the eagerness that these guys had when they went out. It's like, let me at it. I'm chomping at the bit here, versus the other guy, but versus the person you're talking about here is just checking the box. I made it through the doors again. I occupied a space in here. When they do the head count and they put the number up on the board, if they do, yeah, they do. I was one of those. My number's right over there. And so if your name is I don't know if they do this here, but you maybe been at congregations where they have the big board with everybody's nameplate on there, and then if you're there, you put the peg in there that shows it helps the person with doing the attendance whether you were there. Or my name, there's a page in the directory with my face on it, so I'm a member of the church in good standing. Because my name and address can be found in the church directory. Something to watch out for, because it is a real mentality that needs to be given a look into. Any other thoughts on this particular part? This next question I want to ask is really pretty vital as we segue into the last segment here. Do you downplay your talent? Have you ever downplayed your talent? What do I mean by that? This is what I mean. Yeah, not a big deal. Anybody could do this, right? Like rolling off a log, doing what I do. What's wrong with that? And I said it that way on purpose. There's plenty wrong with that. What's wrong with that?
You're not taking yourself very serious.
You're not taking yourself seriously.
give God the glory.
It's all about God anyway. Why do you say, okay, if He put a talent in you, and that's not a big deal. What did you just say? What did you just say about the talent?
Not very grateful.
Not grateful?
Get a bigger hole.
You just get a bigger hole going. That's right.
Well, I think, let's not downplay that one player that made that one point.
Oh no. And that's why I was reluctant to use that as an example. But your point is very well made. Yeah, he probably got out there and played his heart out, and that's what he was able to get from it. He did do something, right? But yeah, I don't want to dismiss that at all.
Well, you're saying to God that talent He gave you is really meaning.
Right. You're saying something to Him. This is a commentary on the talent He gave to you. This is not a commentary on you. This is a commentary on what He gave you. And so we have to be very careful that we don't allow the thing that we do. Let's say your thing is to prepare the communion for Sunday morning. Somebody's assigned you to it. You do a great job. It's important. It needs to happen. It's not that big of a deal. Sure it is. Yes, it is. Whatever it is, standing at the door greeting people or handing them a piece of paper that you can fill out the address thing on there. Hey, could you fill this out for us? We'd like to have a record of you having attended so we can correspond with you or just know something. Tell us something about you. If you're in the area, whatever, there may be a need. Jot it down for us if you would, so we can be praying for you, making contact with people that way. Not a big deal. It's just a piece of paper. It's just talking to people. No big deal. Well, it can lead to the next thing. That if you downplay it enough, if you are insignificant enough in your role, whatever it is you're doing, and you downplay it enough, could this happen? You just simply disengage. After all, what you do isn't that big of a deal. And Benjamin Franklin said this about that. Some people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. And you get the point of that. There's a lot of people that could be useful who are beyond the years, you know, they're into the years where they should be starting to become involved. And they just kind of fade away. Is kind of part of the background. They're part of the scenery in a given congregation. They're one of those faces you're familiar with them. You see them there. Sometimes they're at the potlucks. Probably not in the Bible class. Certainly not on Wednesday night. But they come, and you barely even know who they are because they're just not even engaged. Because at some point, they just didn't see that what they had to offer meant that much. It means everything. We need to put it in that. We need to elevate it because God elevated it. If He gave it to me, who am I to say it's worthless? Who am I to diminish what God has put into me to do? Well, I don't know all the things He's put into me. Find out. All I can do is encourage you to find out. This is a message that you would tell to someone who's 20. This is a message you would tell to someone who's pushing 100 if they're able to get around. Who is exempt from this? Who's exempt? No one's exempt. People want to exempt themselves for whatever reasons. The fear, the doubt, the things I mentioned before, or just the talent just isn't worth that much. I want to encourage you to think different and to recognize that you've been given something, a heavenly gift. And I'll read this, and this will close out the class. And just kind of remind ourselves as to where these things came from. This is James chapter 1. I did not put this in the handout, but I thought this would be a fitting thing to consider. This is James 1:17. Every good thing bestowed and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. Every perfect gift. Think of your talent as having been wrought in heaven, and God sent it to you. Does that change it a little bit for you? I've got this talent. No. You are my craftsmanship. You are my work. I've got this talent. I want you to walk in this thing. This is yours. This is yours. I made this one for you. This is yours. And we go, I dare you. Don't do that. Don't do that. God gave me something. I better get to work. I've got something to do. And I've got some people around me that I can see need the same kind of mindset. They need to get up and do something too. All right. Appreciate that. Well, it was shorter than the other ones by 3 minutes. So